Peace and love. Hey, y'all, it's Gord here, your hurtin' hippie. And this isn't a coffee break session. This is a let's answer your questions. I put out in my feeling, finally Friday, it was a coffee break session. I said, hey, what do you guys want to hear about? It might as well have been a Q&A because I got so many questions that sure it could spawn a whole bunch of short videos that don't touch on them well enough. But I thought better yet, let's let it spawn this video, an answer video. So first and foremost, what have I got here? This is, as you can see, just a CBD pen top. These are not yet for sale at M&J, but soon will be. They're just the next generation of the pen tops that are already there. They just burn a little faster, a little stronger, and are made for the heavier battery. Peace and cheers. And I have basically, I'm just going to say this, I have basically gone to only CBD during the day. My THC is at night. A little bit of one-on-one CBD shatter during the day to just get me past the mood issues. This does a brilliant getting me through the medication. So I'll be chewing on this while we talk. And I'm going to say, even though there was no question, Susan Quackenbush, thank you. Thank you for saying that listening to me brightens your day. Your comments brighten my day. Peace and cheers. Right up next was Eddie. Eddie1367. I'm going to read his question. At first, I wasn't even going to answer the question just because of the beginning of it, but as it expanded, I go, oh, that is something I want to talk about. Because I usually don't like talking about any other WeedTuber, but let me talk. Eddie says, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think of the current crop of WeedTubers, especially the younger ones with their 2-gram dab challenges. Watch me smoke a pound of weed, etc. And if you think that type of video exposure and subject matter helps or hinders cannabis and its users being taken seriously. I'd also like to hear about the good old days of cannabis use and culture when it was still underground compared to today. I'm sure you have some good tales. This is a really good one and is going to spawn a fair amount of talk. First and foremost, Eddie, you talk about the current younger WeedTubers, and I'm not going to mention any names. We all have our favorites and our dislikes, and I think it's a free ground for everybody. Do what feels right to you, and if people watch you, you might earn some money. I make very little money. I'm making less than I did last year just because something happened and they've gone and demonetized an awful lot of my videos. But first and foremost, I'm for the freedom of speech, regardless of my opinion of the content of that speech, because we all have to learn to accept opinions that other people have without taking them as our own. We don't have to take offense. That's my first and foremost to get out there. However, do I think that these 2-gram challenges and these other stop, drop, and glob things and all about just getting high? Do I personally like it? I don't watch it. And if somebody challenges me, if it's to get stinking high, I decline the challenge. Quite favorably, I try to decline it. With a smile, I appreciate people trying to include me, but I'm not into that. I represent, to some degree, or self-represent, a very large part, but I don't know the size, of cannabis users who are using 95% medically. Yes, very once in a while, I like to get high. But I can't remember the last time I did. Because I don't. I medicate. I medicate for pain. So, do I appreciate... I think it's good to get the word out that it's being used in many different ways. But you ask, do you think that type of video exposure and subject matter helps or hinders cannabis and its users being taken seriously. That's where it bothers me. That is, you hit the nail on the head. That is the rub, is when they go out and they do a 2-gram challenge and cough and hack, and we're trying to represent cannabis as a medicine, as something that is direly needed for, I would say, half to 3/4 of the people out there in some form or another. Maybe even 3/4. So many people would do better with CBD in their lives. It replaces cannabidiol, which is naturally produced in your body, but probably because of years and years of cannabis not being in our regular diet, it's not produced properly. Helps our moods, helps our anxiety. Anxiety is so rampant in today's world, and wow, this takes it away. So it does hurt. It continues the stigma of the stoner, and we try so hard to fight that stigma. Sure, it's out there. Excuse me, and I love and respect the recreational form of cannabis, the recreational method of enjoying yourself. I respect it. I lived it. I still once every 3 or 4 weeks might even partake in it. But we that are in that group try to move away from the stoner mentality, and I still on something like this get comments, "You're just a freaking stoner." So yeah, and also you said you'd like to hear about the good old days. Spend a lot of time on your comment, Eddie, of cannabis use and culture when it was still underground. That's an interesting time. Back in the 70s, we were scared crapless about having pot. You would go cross town, buses and everything, just to pick up. It was difficult to find, and you always went to your dealer, to his place, or once in a while you might meet somebody somewhere. But there wasn't, now I keep it on the chair in front beside me when I'm driving, because I quite often take CBD with me. No, I don't do THC while I'm driving. Maybe after or before. And I make sure that it's calmed in my system before I do. But I don't hide it anymore. I have these in my pockets. It's so different. Everything was crotched back then. Every stoner wore underwear. No stoner went commando, because you needed something to be able to hold your pot. And you were always concerned of a cop driving by that they will decide to check you out. It was an interesting culture. We sometimes pushed the buttons and got in trouble for it. Cops were not very friendly about it. Usually, though, they didn't want to. Most of the good ones didn't want to ruin a young kid's life, so they would just take your stuff and tell you go home. So that's happened to me quite a few times while I was growing up. Thank God for those police. And I think I've covered Eddie. So let's go on. And Ancient Stone says he's got a new symptom, and wondering if I've experienced it before. With fibromyalgia, yes, I have. Do you ever get lightheaded or disorient while walking or driving? My ears don't hurt, but loud noises messes with my hearing and balance like a bobblehead. I would say, I forget what it's called, but it's not really fibro, but fibro people often have this situation. It's kind of like tinnitus, but it's a dust particle or something that's gotten into your ear, and it's very deep in, and it's rattling around. When it moves and touches the hearing bone, it causes disorientation. If I'm right, I wish I could remember the name of it, because there's even a home remedy for it, that you need someone else to do something with your head. But I get it sometimes, and sometimes it lasts for weeks and months, and it's usually if you move real quick, oh, there you go, kind of like getting up quick, but you just moved. Yeah, it's tough. I'm calling on the rest of you out there to try and find the answer to that. Next, she's ready to live. I like your comments, I really do. I'm interested in how your fibromyalgia has progressed since you first started not feeling right to today. How you dealt with the symptoms and how it impacted your everyday life. That's a great question. That's a great one. Fibro, when did it really hit? I kind of now looking back, I think it hit when I was a kid. I think my young son, my 8-year-old, has it. I think that the early, what they call growing pains, it only if it were truly growing pains, every single child would get it. But out of my 4 children, only one experienced growing pains. That's my 8-year-old, and he gets it fairly often. His legs hurt like my legs still hurt. I still get growing pains. It's just now they call it part of my fibromyalgia. When I was a kid, they called it growing pains. I had terrible digestion when I was young. Terrible, almost IBS. So is my 8-year-old. So when did it first hit? The more I think about it, I think I've had it all along. But I think in 2005, it was getting to the point that the constant headaches, the constant pain in both my back and my legs and my hands were causing me to not be able to concentrate at work, not be able to get anything done. And I had a very important job. I'll talk about it one day. And so for a couple of years, I was really battling focus and ability because the fog was hitting over and over. Finally, to the point where my doctor said in 2008, we've got to take you out. It's impacting your mental health. So that's kind of how it progressed since 2008. So we're 9 years that I've been away from work. Has it gotten worse? The IBS has gotten worse. The way it moves around has gotten worse. Every once in a while I get some new symptom. Now I've got blood in the urine. Things like that. But it's the fact that fibro is never consistent. The inconsistency of it is what bothers me now. It never bothered me years ago because it was all so fresh. But now the inconsistency of it, every day you don't know, am I going to have the same pains as yesterday or have I got a new bout coming? That kind of thing. Let me move on. I hope that helps. She's ready to live. Patrick Wagner, I like to watch at lunchtime while I'm at home tending to my tomato garden. Have you ever told the story of your first time trying cannabis? Well, I'm going to tell my story of the first time. Puppy, stop. It was at school. Grade 7, last year of elementary in BC. So it was little school. Grade 7, I had just started smoking cigarettes, only maybe 2 weeks before. And a circle one away from my circle, hidden in the corner of the school field, little groups of cigarette smokers, but one away from me was this group that I kind of liked, nice people, and it was only about 2 weeks into me smoking cigarettes, they looked over and said, "You smoke cigarettes? Hey, come over here, talk to us." And they had some pot, and after school we went to a orchard and we got high and sat in the trees and talked till about 6 or 7 o'clock at night. I got in trouble for coming home late. I loved it. Some people say they don't get high the first time. I got high the first time and I loved it. I loved what it did for me. It was months before I told my sister I was doing it, my older sister, and she at first was so mad at me and then wanted me to help her learn. And her and I have shared it ever since. And finally, that friggin' guy from Hamilton. How you doing, Bart? Hey, can you discuss the changes we'll possibly be facing of the legislation of marijuana? There's a lot of topics involved with that. Yes, there are. I face legality questions all the time on the site that I volunteer on to help people find their medicine at MMJ. People ask about legalities all the time. I refer them to YouTube because none of us can decide legalities. Even the cops are not consistent on what's legal and what's not legal. Our provinces aren't consistent, where dispensaries seem to have been legalized in BC and still chastised in Ontario, non existent in Alberta and Quebec. It's all over the place. We have the only consistency is the inconsistency of the way the laws are applied. So, what are the legalities? What's upcoming? I don't know what's upcoming. I hope that they're challenging Health Canada again on their answer to the Allard case, because there was 5 areas of access they were supposed to fix our rights. They never fixed that. All they did was allow growing under very restrained circumstances. So did they give us our access that the Supreme Court of Canada said was lacking? No. We need change. Will it be forthcoming? I don't have strong confidence in the Trudeau government. I don't. They keep putting off the date. They keep putting off the work. The committees are dragging their tail. They keep talking that it's to get the criminals off the street, to get the criminals out of it, but yet they keep making more criminals by prosecuting. It's ridiculous. We need to change it. It's going to be legal. Let's stop making more criminals. That's the main important thing. And any of you need to write your MP, especially if they're Liberal, and say if the Liberals really want to hold a government and keep a government, they're going to have to live up to this promise, and properly. That's all the questions that came out of that. 17 minutes. I hope you enjoyed it. My boys are out grocery shopping and will be back any minute, so I'm going to shut this down. That's why I try to keep the topics away from my young boy. And that's why I've opened a new playlist, Family, where my hippie travels go, because my hippie travels have nothing to do with the medicine. It's just introducing Alberta to all of you and sharing time. So I hope you'll all thumbs up, pass it on, share it with some people, encourage them to subscribe. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. I have something like 75% of my watchers are not subscribed. And I think it's sad. I think YouTube does that because some of you don't want to subscribe to a cannabis-related channel. I get that. So, peace and cheers, my friends. Love and harmony. Find people without smiles today and give them yours. They need it. They need it. They need it. Peace.